Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another live. But today, I really wanted to share my story of how two patients literally changed my life. And some of you have may heard this, but I really felt grateful today about just the journey that I've been on and with my family and patients and friends. And I just really wanted to share maybe that with you who are new to the to this channel or wherever you might be tuning in. So I've been a physician for over a couple of decades now, and I had moved to Colorado after I got out of the Air Force. So I was active duty for 4 years. We were stationed in Virginia at Langley Air Force Base and went to Western Colorado. And I ended up taking a job in a little town called Rifle, Colorado. So, yes, it's named after the gun, like rifle. Apparently, the story goes there was a rifle found leaning up against a tree, and that's where they founded the town of Rifle. So, Rifle is nestled up in the Rocky Mountains. The Colorado River runs right down in the middle of town. You literally have to cross the Colorado to get to different parts of the town. Beautiful area, salt of the earth people. And I worked in a little hospital. I think there's 25 bed hospital now. It was smaller, but they've expanded. And I worked in the family medicine as a family medicine physician. I did inpatient, outpatient, nursing home, you named it. I did it there, and so it was a really good time to be in kind of a rural area. And one day, 12 years ago, well, actually 2012, so 11 years ago, I had a patient come see me who mentioned that meat and dairy upset her stomach. I said, "Well, stop eating meat and dairy." Didn't really dawn on me that that was a plant-based diet. But what was interesting was 30 days later, she came back for a follow-up. And in that appointment, she actually brought her daughter with her, who was 16 at the time. And in Rifle, Colorado, as you can imagine, there's not a whole lot of vegan or maybe health restaurants. There's steakhouses and Mexican restaurants. I think they have their token Chinese restaurant as well. But in this discussion in the follow up with her daughter, she goes, "Now I want you to tell Dr. Marbus what you did." And so in my mind, I'm thinking, "Oh goodness, what did this poor child do to come to her mother's appointment?" But she said, "I wanted to help my mom eating a healthier diet. And so I cooked with her and we ate together, and I felt so good that I stopped two of my ADD meds, or attention deficit disorder medications." So that really got me. The mother was like, "Why was she able to do that?" I was like, "I don't know, but that's the coolest thing I've ever heard." So the really important thing was the discussion that we had after that revelation was me asking, "What did you eat?" And they said, "Well, we ate what you said, which was beans, whole grains, nuts and seeds, fruits and vegetables," right? They literally had to go to the grocery store and cook foods at home. So there were they were limiting their processed foods. They were avoiding animal products and dairy and meat and such. And for a teenager to have such mental clarity and feel so good within 30 days of changing their diet, I was astounded. And that was the moment that I dove into the plant based rabbit hole, and I've yet to emerge. And it's been a wonderful journey. So, the first thing I did was I Googled ADD and plant based diet, basically. And what came up was T. Colin Campbell's book, The China Study. I ordered it on Amazon. It came, I read it in 2 days. I don't know if any of you have read that book, but it's a thick book. And I was enthralled by the science showing how you could turn off and on cancer with different types of protein. Animal protein could turn it on, and plant-based protein, kept it turned off. And I mean, it was just astounding to me to see this amazing science that was many years old. And then I was like, why didn't I hear about this in medical school? Well, as I started doing more research, I was really trying to figure out what this meant for me as a physician, but also in my personal life, because I'm a true believer that I need to be living by the standards that I'm holding my patients accountable to, or advising them to. So if I say go exercise, I'm exercising. If I say eat a plant-based diet, I'm eating a plant-based diet. If I say try to get better sleep and handle stress and build community, I'm doing those things myself. So I was had a lot to think about. I had 3 teenagers at home at the time and my husband, so they were 13, 15, and 18 at that time, the kids. And I just wasn't quite sure, 1, how to bring this home, or 2, how do I bring it into practice? Because there weren't as many resources as there are nowadays. So I really started reading on it. I came across a few different other resources, Dr. McDougall's site. I saw nutritionfacts.org. I watched the Forks Over Knives documentary, all these things. But I really wanted to practice this one more time on another patient because I was really focusing in on the anti-inflammatory components of a whole food plant-based diet as well. And a patient came in 2 weeks later who had lupus. Now, this patient had 12 different medications, 50 pounds overweight. She was on high doses of steroids. She was on medications to suppress her immune system. And she was coming in because she was basically relaying the story that she was unable to probably continue working because of the significant pain that she was having. And the lupus was really taking a toll on her life. And mind you, she was younger than me at that time and had only been diagnosed a few years earlier. So I listened to her. I'm looking at these medications and thinking, there's not much more I can do here. Even a specialist, because in rural Colorado, as in many places in rural America, it's difficult to find a specialist. So your primary care provider often is the specialist, the rheumatologist, the urologist, the cardiologist, until you can get to a place where the specialists are actually living. And so I was like, there's not going to be a whole bunch more we can do medication wise, but would you be willing to change your diet? Change literally what's on the end of your fork, because I've been reading about this plant-based diet for a few weeks, and I think it has some amazing potential as an anti-inflammatory uh, diet that may help with, resolving at least some of the pain or discomfort you're having with the lupus. And she said, I'll try anything. So before she left, we measured what's called a CRP, and this is an inflammatory marker in the body. Now, mind you, she's on all these medications. So her inflammatory marker that day was 3 times high normal. And I said, but I need you to come back in 2 weeks. I'm super excited. I can't wait like 30 days. I really want to see what's happening. So she came back in 2 weeks and we remeasured her CRP, and it was just outside of normal. She was down 8 pounds. Her migraines, which she was suffering from almost on a daily basis, had completely resolved, and she started feeling better. So let's fast forward with that patient for 5 months. She lost 50 pounds. She stopped 7 of those 12 medications, including the methotrexate she was on, high doses of prednisone. And, eventually over time, her lupus antibodies actually declined and were undetectable. That was one patient. But at that 2-week point, I was like, that's it. We're going on a whole food plant-based diet and I'll figure this out as we go. So I went home to my family, and that was a Friday evening. I literally walked in the door, threw down my purse, and grabbed a garbage bag and threw out everything that was animal based. That included cheese, eggs, milk, any meat, anything at all in my home that was animal based, and threw it out that night. And then I stayed up till 1 in the morning trying to figure out what to feed him the next day. um, Now, there's another piece of this story that was a Friday. So on Sunday morning, we went to church, and I wanted to kind of preface this a little bit. I had a freezer that had a quarter of a grass-fed beef in it. So it was doctor's dad had raised beef, and I'm thinking I'm feeding my family well. So there's this large chunk of meat in a freezer in the garage. Now, you live in Western Colorado, you don't just throw that away. There are animals that come around and lurking. You don't want to partake in digging into a garbage can, or plus it smells and just decaying matter. So I was in my head trying to figure out what to do with this piece of meat, this large chunk of meat, because I wasn't going to give it to another human, because obviously that was moving me in the wrong direction of where I want to go. But I was thinking maybe I give it to the animal shelter or something. So that was the another piece that was kind of rattling around in my brain. So we went to church, we came back. Oh my heavens. The freezer had broken sometime in this weekend, and the carcass that was in the freezer began to defrost, and there was literally juices flowing down the ground, right? As you're walking in to the garage and the smell. Um, it was not like that 2 hours earlier. And my husband looked at me, he goes, "Well, if you hadn't been with me, I could have sworn you unplugged this freezer." I was like, "Nope." That's like, for me, it's God, it's the universe, whatever you want to call it, saying, "You're done." And so I'm like, "Okay, we're done." And I do want to, recall that at home with the 3 teenagers, I said, "Hey, we're eating a plant-based diet. You guys eat what you want outside this house, but in this home, this is what we're eating." And my husband he's like, "Hey, as long as are you still cooking?" He's like, "I'll eat whatever." I'm like, "Cool." So that was a fairly easy transition for me. The children were really good at giving me most of the time constructive feedback on my food. It definitely upped my cooking game, but over the course of the next year, I was using this with countless number of patients, and I learned a few really important lessons. One is I just said, "Go eat a plant-based diet." That's what I said at first. I was so excited. And what was funny was the patient, um, they would just do what I said. They would go to the produce section. That's where plants are, right? They forgot about the beans and legumes and the whole grains and just ate fruits and vegetables. They came back fatigued, right? Because they didn't have enough calories to sustain them. So that was a big lesson for me. So I really made sure that when I'm, counseling someone to eat a whole food plant-based diet, to really focus in on making sure you're getting enough calories. And so that's fruits, veggies, beans, and whole grains, and some nuts and seeds. So that was one big lesson. And then I really quickly learned, I had a type 2 diabetic that was insulin dependent, and literally she took what I said to heart and had to stop 60 units of insulin in 72 hours. And I was like, what in the world is this? Is beyond anything I could prescribe. It's so powerful. And my own story is, and some of you may know this as well, I've been hypothyroid since my second child was born, Jonathan, 27 years ago. So going into the whole food plant-based diet, I never even thought that my thyroid would improve, because I was 15 years into this diagnosis and continued escalating doses of levothyroxine depending on the year and such. Yeah, so within a year, I started having some trouble with my shoulder. It was called, uh, there's some, think about like a frozen shoulder. There's a fancy name, but no need to get into that. But anyway, it got to the point that I was having shoulder pain. There was no injury, like, but literally, you could not push my shoulder up. And so I went to my friend who was an orthopedic surgeon. He's like, "Well, Lori, there's 3 things that are typically associated with this kind of frozen shoulder, or adhesive capsulitis, if someone wants to really know the detailed name of it." And basically, it's you're over 40. I'm like, well, I was over 40 and type 2 diabetic, never been a type 2 diabetic or diabetic, and hyperthyroidism. I was like, well, I have hypo and I'm euthyroid, meaning that I'm very, got normal levels the last time I checked, and I checked annually like I was supposed to. But let me check my blood. Huh. So sure enough, um, my TSH was 0, which means that I was way overdosed on my thyroid medication. And I had to curtail it by quite a bit. And over the years, I've continued to have decreasing doses, depending on a few different factors, it might fluctuate a little bit, but for the most part, it's much lower than it was. And I went on to deal with this adhesive capsulitis for 2 years. And it went from one shoulder to another just because I switched to a plant-based diet. I mean, they're fine now, obviously, but I just wanted to speak to that because 2 patients, literally, we had a conversation. I gave some advice. They took it to heart, and their response, their how they got better literally changed my life. So, as you guys know, I started plant-based telehealth with a co-founder. We sold that to John Mackey last summer, and we started Mora Medical, and unfortunately, that hasn't worked out. We shut that down, so now I'm seeing patients on my own, and I continue to share through the podcast and anyone I meet about a whole food plant-based diet because I really do believe it has the power to change so many lives. Now, is it a panacea? No, but it sure is close as I can get. I can't prescribe anything else that's more powerful. And Along with that though, it's more than just the simple let's change what's on your plate, but also just engaging in a different mindset and understanding that you will and can have the ability to change the trajectory of your life. And I don't know. I think of the thousands and thousands of patients I have been blessed to take care of over the last 11 years I've been on a plant-based diet and sharing this message to anyone who would listen. I can't help to think that those 2 patients had a hand in helping them as well. So take the ripple effects that you never know, a a smile, a buying someone coffee, or just opening the door for someone, just a kind gesture. But also knowing that your whole food plant-based journey can have a profound effect on some other people. So please don't neglect that and don't think that you're the only one that's doing this. There's people watching and listening. And you never know how you might affect one person who might affect many, many others. So I want to leave you with that message, and I hope that brightens your day and gives you a little bit of juice if you're struggling on the plant-based diet, or everyone around you seems that they're not supporting you, but to know that we do support you here. I do have a free Facebook group, Dr. Marvis. Just look for Dr. Lori Marvis on Facebook, and happy to support you there. So yeah, we're almost closing in on 900 in that group. It's a lot of fun, and I jump in there quite a bit. And so is Brittany Giroudi, and yeah, we just really want to encourage and help people. So how can I be of more service to you? I am going to be doing, I decided this morning, just real quickly, a workshop on labs, plant-based labs. I get a lot of questions on labs. What should I do? What's with this number? Is this important? Do I need to worry about it? And so what I'm doing with through the Healing Kitchen, we have a Healing Kitchen with Brittany Giroudi, and on the premium membership, every month I will do an in-depth workshop, and my first one will be all about labs. So everyone who shows up, bring your labs. If you have questions, I will stay and answer all of them. And I'll be producing as well an ebook that kind of summarizes what I'm going to be teaching, and you'll have access to that. And yeah, but you need to be a member of the Healing Kitchen. But I'm hoping that will be helpful. And if you don't want to join the Healing Kitchen, that's fine. There's another YouTube live that I did on here on Belt Labs as well. I'll just be answering more direct questions in the group. So hope that's helpful. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, blessed day. And I will see you tomorrow. Okay. Bye. Now I got to figure out how to end this thing. There we go.